LinkedIn Echo Chamber. This is ML's Like Teen Spirit. Today I've got Elizabeth with me. Elizabeth, how are you doing?
Very well, John. Great to be on your podcast.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Thank you for
inviting
the
me.
thank you for the support, Elizabeth. So, Elizabeth, you're here because there's been a topic I've been wanting to interview people about, and it's a day in the life series. So, I've been wanting to speak to you for some time because you've had a stellar career in data. I'll have you introduce yourself in a moment, but what we wanted to do today is talk through like the day in the life of a senior data leader and all the things that come with that. So before we start that part, could I ask for an introduction, please? So just a minute or so, tell everyone what you've been doing for, well, all your career, please.
Well, Elizabeth Osta. I'm founder of Digital Forward, visiting fellow at the Judge Business School in Cambridge, and also advisor to Data Leaders, which is the Association of Chief Data Officers. I have over 36 years experience in data. Yeah, really starting from building data products back in the day, and then moved in looking at different facets of data. I moved companies, I moved industries, but I mostly been always in large corporations. But I had the fortune of meeting fantastic people who are leaders in data and also hiring fantastic people who are now leaders in data. So data is my passion. And my last role was Chief Data Officer at Heineken Global. Before that, I spent many years at Barclays. And again, I was Chief Data Officer for a function. Before that, I had different data responsibilities within Barclays. I worked at Dunnhumby. I worked at McKinsey, at Gillette. And again, as I said, I started at GFK building data products and selling data products. So I think it's been a fascinating journey. But most importantly, the data world keeps evolving. And every year becomes with new development, new challenges, and new opportunities. So I think it's been a fantastic ride.
Elizabeth, what a collection of places you've worked and big brands. Oh my God. Well, look, congratulations on a great career. What I wanted to do for this call is normally I'm collecting stories from like practitioners who are working on data problems and they're talking about how it worked. I've been wanting you to speak to me because you've been at Heineken in a global position for the chief data officer. And I've really wanted to capture what that job involves. So I was wondering so this is the day in the life piece. I want to try and communicate to people what is it that somebody like Elizabeth did when they had that job? So could I ask you, if you take like a really rough average, I know every day is different, probably lots of meetings, but if you know you're 9 until 6 or whenever they made you work, like what would be the types of things you'd be doing in that job? Who would you be speaking to? What would be some very common patterns for your day?
Yeah, well, you said it, meetings, right? And so from one end, of course, data is important for every strategic project. So quite a lot of project reviews, big strategic projects, and how was data performing? Did we have everything that we needed in data? So big, should we say, oversight of projects side of things. The other, lots of conversation with the business and the different business units, because of course, every company that wants to do data needs to embrace data, which means that all the business needs to start embrace data. So quite a lot of conversation with the different business units at global level, but also at local level to understand the challenges and the problems. A lot of troubleshooting in terms of, okay, escalations, there is a problem, what do we do and how we solve it. Of course, everyday touch points with the teams, whether it was a stand-up, whether it was a team meeting, whether it was just understanding from more what's happening, what are the urgent things, but also the other side, what are the things that we need to think about and maybe build. And across all of that, making sure that we were clear about, so these are the projects, this is what the company needs, but also what is the data infrastructure that we need to build in order to ensure that the company has what they need for the long term. And I think one of the key issues, and maybe I jump already on the next question, but it's really making sure that you are balancing building for the future with responding to immediate issues, right? And then just going back to the day, it was, of course, then overseeing operations, because you have quite a lot of data processes that are in place. So you need to understand that operations are going well, and making sure that we have the people that we need, that we have the training that we need, we are clear on what are the issues coming from the data processes, but also building new processes. And building new processes is always a question of, okay, do we build internally, or are we using external suppliers? Sort of how we are going to go about this, and is that something that we have capability internally? Do we need external help? So I think it's a bit of a constant debate on internal versus external.
What about let's look at Heineken, Elizabeth. So people have an idea of what you were dealing with all this communication. What kind of team, was your area, and over what geographies, and how spread was it? What kind of numbers on the department? Like, how big was the data division there?
Okay, so I think it's on the organizational structure. First of all, the remit was global, and it was mostly pertinent to 51 operating companies in different geographies that were covering pretty much sort of all the world, with 4 regions. So that is the geographical scope. Then we had a hub in Krakow, internal hub, and also we had a hub in India, and we had a hub with outsource hub. So you had people reporting to the operating companies, and there were more or less 400. We had people reporting into outsource hub. It was also depending on the phase, between 200 and 400, depending on how busy we were with projects. And then we had the central team, if you wish, the operations in Krakow, and the global team, which sort of about 150 people. And the central team would look at the coordination of global projects, dissemination of knowledge in the operating companies, and also building the infrastructure that was needed, supporting the AI deployments, supporting the big programs, but at the same time also troubleshooting big data problems that were occurring in specific geographies. So it was quite a different set of activities. In terms of processes that were centralized, we were dealing with master data processes that were sort of a central level. At least they were, the checks of it was centralized. We were doing with the governance, making sure that, for instance, if you look at reference data, we had the right reference data, but also deeper governance. So for instance, with new rules coming at different parts of the world, making sure that we were fit for purpose together with the legal department in terms of our data processes for the different parts of the world. Governance has become really important in the past few years, and we saw the rise of citizen data, so that nation states are starting to be quite nervous about cross-border movement of data, which comes and odds with, if you wish, cloud deployments that are global, etc. So from one end, you go to cloud, so you don't quite know where the data are, and are with your provider. From the other, nation states are quite specific about the fact that citizen data should not leave the boundaries of a country. So that also then brings different contracts with your providers and different legal agreements with your providers. But I hope I gave you the sense of a lot of meetings. So you asked me, was meetings nonstop from very early in the day to very late, given the different also time zones in which we were operating. Quite diverse set of meetings, again, between the legal department, the project teams, the technical teams, the business, the team itself, the operations, right? So quite different. It was always quite a widespread set of topics in a single day.
And let's move on to the parts that you enjoyed with all this. So there's lots of meetings. Normally people don't love this side of it. But what was the thing that you look back on that you enjoyed in this role?
Well, first of all, people, right? Because we're talking about data, and data is exciting by itself. But of course, setting up teams and seeing also the teams grow, upskilling the teams, creating that excitement in the teams of building something. I think that's always been super important to me. And in most of my roles, I always started as employee number one or the first one. And then, over time, we build teams, we build processes, we build platforms, we build things. So I think that, sort of that journey, I always find it super exciting. The other thing that I found super exciting is to see, again, people grow, maybe from because we had a policy of having people from the business coming to data. So that means in many cases quite a lot of upskilling. But seeing the sort of the inflection points when people started from zero and then became quite good with lots of ideas, I think that was super interesting.
Well, I think
Also
it's a nice
seeing that.
philosophy. It's a nice philosophy because often, solving a data problem involves, massive hiring round. And it all happens so quickly that existing people don't feel great. Even the new ones that come in on a big hiring round, their expectations are so high that some of those people don't enjoy it. It just sometimes never works well when it's, we fix this problem by bringing people in, whereas people that are already there getting a new opportunity, can sometimes work well. It's more invested in it.
I think it's super important because every company's got their culture, and there are people that have been there for a long time that love a company. They really understand the company well. And I think it's super important data gets embedded in the cultural fabric of a company, in the operations, in the processes, so that becomes an enabler. So yeah, I'm a big promoter of that sense. So it was a bit the same when I was at Barclays. We had a scheme by which we had people coming from the branches that were really interested in data. And I had some amazing people who went on to do amazing careers, amazing things in data. So I think that that journey of having people who are passionate, display some interest and passion towards a topic, but maybe they're not expert, and seeing them becoming experts, I think is super exciting.
Good. Now, Elizabeth, you're independent now, so you're no longer at Heineken. You must be in a good position to tell us something that you didn't like about when you worked there. So you don't need to make it too specific to the company, but talk about the job there and the thing that you would look at and go, God, this was just really hard, or I just didn't enjoy this element of the job. Tell people what that was.
Well, look, so there are many studies, and also data leaders publish the Voice of the CDO study every year, right? Just to see what is the barometer. I think, as I alluded, it was literally the time and the fraction and the amount of things that you had to deal with, right? And many of those things are not very sexy. So, you spend quite a lot of time fixing things that are broken, right? And so there's a bit of thankless task sometimes, right? So I think this is probably where it's in many that have been in these data roles, and you oversee such a big data estate, which is legacy. You have to deal with a lot of issues that are driven by the type of infrastructure, architecture, existing processes, fragmentation in the different operating companies, or who is inputting data. So it's quite a journey to bring it to a state that is mature. To an extent, it's much easier to be greenfield. So it's much better for a company that starts from scratch, or particularly if you're a technology native, you have this kind of fans, you can actually jump immediately to all the latest stacks and the latest technologies. Whilst I think for companies who have a long history, it's a bit harder. So I think it was interesting to see the results also of the Voice of the CDO were pretty much similar to my experience. Many chief data officers find it tiresome, the amount of things that you need to fix. And you see also with the rise of ChatGPT and all these AI tools, which are amazing, by the way, I think you get almost like an expectation that everything is easy and is intuitive. But at the same time, when your internal data are coming from legacy systems, maybe you're not being taken care of. And that's why I was saying it's so important the business comes on board, because ultimately the business needs to feel a sense of ownership of data as an asset, in the same way that you have ownership of financials and money, right? But sometimes the realization that poor hygiene leads to so many issues down the line. I think that's a big journey that many companies are going through. When I was at Heineken, we did an enterprise data model. So then we started to map from the different applications to these enterprise data models, move to one standardized cloud pattern. But these things take time. And again, as I said at the beginning, they're not very interesting and sexy. It requires investment as well, which is harder to get than for something that gives an immediate return on investment.
Well, Elizabeth, we're nearly at the end. But I want one more insight from you, please. So you said at the start here that you have 36 years doing this. So there must be something that you learned through these senior positions that you would tell the younger version of yourself. So what is it, having been a chief data officer, what tip or thing to focus on would you tell the younger version of yourself that would have helped you all those years ago when you started? Is there any insight that you can take away, or thing that you wish you knew when you were young?
Well, two things. One is well done, and the other is why don't you do this? I think it's well done because it's great to have this passion for data that for me started at university, coding parallel distributed processing, and this excitement about how the brain works and how AI could work, right? And now seeing it realized and getting closer every year. So that's fantastic. I think on the other side, I met amazing people, and I said that, some were my bosses, like people like Clive Humby, Ogden Humby, or Osama Fayyad, the first chief data officer at Yahoo ever. And I hired some incredible people, like I can give you endless names who are now in senior positions. So I think in the, what I described before, you were sometimes so busy on the task, on the day-to-day, on this needs to be happening today, or there is this problem today. I wish I would have spent more quality time with all these bright minds. So, and maybe advice for everyone, sometimes, let's take a step back. We're always busy, and it's getting busier and busier. I don't see the world getting less busy. But again, so to try to make the most of incredible human interactions that you can have, because it's super inspiring sometimes to go back to first principle and have really good conversations. And I'm sure everyone has got on their daily routines incredible people, so spend more time with them.
Oh, I love that one. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Well, look, we're at the end of time, so thank you for your insights today. Congrats on such a great career. Ladies and gents, this has been ML's Like Teen Spirit.